say more than 40,000 people protested in Greece over last month's train disaster.
Clashes erupted when the protesters hurled firebombs and rocks at the authorities. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am Ricky Matay.
And I am Nina Richie Elago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. eyes sophisticated equipment and well-trained military. Senate committee dismisses wage increase before Labor Day. Oriental Mindoro oil spill reaches Calapan, Batangas. Russia begins joint naval drills with China and Iran. And Pyongyang admits they fired intercontinental ballistic missile over east of Korea.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. vows to provide the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, with sophisticated equipment and training to keep up with the challenging times. Celine Dorado has the story.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has expressed full confidence in the capability and capacity of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, despite tremendous challenges. During his talk to the troops in the AFP's 9th Infantry Division base at Camp Elias Angeles in Pili, Camarines Sur, Marcos cited the need for the military to actively guard the nation's borders from external threats amid the current geopolitical tensions in Asia. In his address to the troops, the Commander-in-Chief vowed to provide the AFP with sophisticated equipment and training, which he said the government is currently working on.
We in the civilian government are determined to make sure that when we ask you to do your duty, that then you are fully prepared, you are fully trained, and you are complete in the equipment that you need to fulfill that mission.
The president also cited the personnel of the 9th ID to become peacemakers under the government's whole-of-nation approach in dealing with communist and terrorist groups. Marcos said the insurgency situation in Bicol region has evolved and appears to have gained stability. Lieutenant General Efren Baluyot, commander of the Southern Luzon Commander SOLCOM, says the visit of the President Marcos is a morale booster for the troops. 9th ID is under the command of SOLCOM. Baluyot says the commander-in-chief greeted and asked about the personal situation of the troops after issuing them a new directive.
Unang-una, ang direktiba ng ating Pangulo ay matapos na natin ang ating suliranin sa internal security upang nang sa gayon ay makalipat naman tayo or makafocus naman tayo sa pagpapaunlad ng mga kailangang peace development programs dito sa Region 5. At the same time ay upang makapag-shift na tayo sa territorial defense na lubos naman natin kailangan sa mga panahong ito.
Celine Dorado for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Laborers from the private sector should not expect an increase in their wages in time for the Labor Day celebration on May 1. Senator Jingo Estrada, chairperson of the Senate Committee on Labor, has ruled out the possibility of passing the proposed 150 peso across-the-board wage hike to employees of the private sector. Senate President Miguel Zubiri filed the bill, which aims to uplift the living status of ordinary workers. Yet, Estrada says the committee will study the proposal and will schedule hearings and consultations with stakeholders on the matter. Estrada asserts he is more concerned about job security than the wage increase. The senator noted that it's only been a year since the economy opened because of the COVID pandemic, and majority of the micro, small and medium enterprises, or MSMEs, hardly hit by the health emergency are still recovering. Estrada says the situation should be weighed in wisely to ensure that private sector workers and the employers will both benefit.
It's been only a year since the full reopening of the country's economy following the 2-year extensive COVID-19 restriction. Well, despite the projected strong economic rebound, we're still struggling trying to return to the pre-pandemic levels. Alam mo, more than the issue of wage increase is the matter of job security, which most of our workers have yet to attain.
The sunken oil tanker MT Princess Empress is not new, as declared by the owner of the vessel. Meanwhile, the Department of Justice and other concerned government agencies have inspected the areas affected by the oil spill. Kim Leana has the details.
The Department of Justice has a witness that will prove that the sunken oil tanker MT Princess Empress is an old scrap vessel estimated to be 50 years old. The witness statement opposed the claims of the ship's owner to the Philippine Coast Guard that the vessel is new and only 2 years old.
May affidavit na kami hawak ng isang taong nakakaalam ng pangyayari tungkol sa barkong ito na may alam talaga kung paano nagsimula ang lahat. Kasi sinabi ko saan nakatambak yung scrap, kung saan kinuha, kung saan ginawa.
Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla says MT Princess Empress is a rebuilt scrap ship, which was refurbished twice, and its design was not intended to be an oil tanker.
Mayroon misrepresentation sa simulat sa pool nung nangyari itong kasong ito. Nung unang meeting namin noong Sabado, ang bitaw pa sa amin na salita na ang sinabi raw nila sa Coast Guard ay bagong-bago itong barkong ito. At hindi pa na siya bago. Ito yung luma na, scrap na siya, na nirebuild. Unang nirebuild para maging LPG carrier, tapos nirebuild na naman, pinahaba para maging tanker. Para maging tanker.
Meanwhile, the Department of Justice and other concerned agencies will go to Oriental Mindoro on Tuesday, March 21, to validate the initial findings on the oil spill incident. Remulla says the department is gathering more evidence and statements of witnesses to build up a case against the owners. He added that they are looking at all angles, including concerns about the insurance of the tanker.
Well, right now, the government is really on the job, no? Ang DSWD is there, labor is there. Ginagawa ang lahat ng gobyerno para tulungan natin lahat. We can assure you that we will not stop. We will run after them. Magkakaroon ng kaso to, hindi ito civil case lang. Criminal cases will be filed against those perpetrators.
Kim Liana, for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The oil spill from the sunken oil tanker MT Princess Empress has reached the coastal area of Calapan, Batangas. Calapan Mayor Malu Murillo confirmed that they are trying to contain the slick by deploying improvised spill booms in the coastal area and in the mouth of the river to protect the waters and the mangroves. The local government of Calapan also imposes fishing ban. The nearby Boracay Island residents are also preparing to prevent the oil spill. Government data shows that more than 30,000 families, or around 137,230 individuals from 121 barangays in Mimaropa and Western Visayas have been affected by the oil spill.
Asolan has urged the government to use part of the 100 billion peso fuel excise tax collection in the oil spill cleanup efforts in Mindoro Oriental. House Deputy Speaker Ralph Recto says the annual collection from the excise tax has reached 80 billion pesos, and part of it can be used to clean up the ocean affected by the oil slick caused by the sunken oil tanker MT Princess Empress. Recto adds that 1 billion pesos is a small amount from the government's excise tax collection if it could prevent the spread of the oil spill to avoid further damage to the environment. Recto explains that excise tax is imposed on oil products because it is harmful, causing pollution and sickness, and contributing to global warming. He adds that nature, when under threats such as the oil spill, is entitled to tax dividends.
The Department of Agriculture has confiscated smuggled white sugar worth 85 million pesos. Let's hear more details from Moira Encina.
The Department of Agriculture, or DA, has intercepted more than 780,000 kilos of smuggled white sugar in 3 container vans. Agriculture Assistant Secretary James Laig says the operation was conducted after an order was issued for the cargo. The smuggled refined sugar is consigned to MFBY Consumer Goods Trading and was declared as sleeper outsoles. When operatives from DA opened and inspected the container vans, they discovered around 520 sacks of refined sugar. The confiscated sugar in 3 container vans is estimated at 85 million pesos. The DA is prepared to charge the consignee with violations of the Food Safety Act and the Anti-Agriculture Smuggling Act of 2016. The container vans are still on hold at the port of Subic in Zambales and will undergo seizure and forfeiture proceedings. Moira Encina for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The COVID-19 positivity rate in the National Capital Region, or NCR, is rising. This was the observation of Octa Research Fellow Dr. Guido David as the 7-day COVID-19 positivity rate increased to 3% on March 15 from 2.1% last March 8. Positivity rate is the number of people tested and found to be positive with a virus infection. In a tweet, David says he expects the number to increase further, but not to the levels seen in 2022. As of March 16, the Department of Health reported a nationwide positivity rate of 3.5%. The country also logged 261 new cases on Thursday with 8 deaths. The country's active cases are at 9,231 with 90 recoveries. The majority of the new cases came from NCR with 96 new infections and Davao del Sur with 25. The DOH projects new cases this Friday between 250 to 350 cases.
3 years after the COVID-19 pandemic, almost 7 out of 10 unvaccinated Filipinos remain skeptical from getting the vaccine against the virus. In the latest Social Weather Station, or SWS survey released on Thursday, it showed that 69% of the unvaccinated Filipinos are unwilling to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Out of 1,200 participants through a face-to-face interview last December 10 to 14, 2022, 12% are willing and 19% are still undecided. Data shows that 62.6 million adult Filipinos, or 87%, have been vaccinated against COVID-19. Of the vaccinated Filipinos, 32% are willing to receive booster shots, while 44% are unwilling and 24% are undecided. SWS data also shows that 17% of the vaccinated population have availed their 3rd dose or first booster dose, while 6% got their 4th dose or 2nd booster shot.
The Commission on Elections will hold a plebiscite in Marawi City tomorrow for the creation of 2 new barangays. Mean Corvera reports.
The Commission on Elections is prepared to conduct the plebiscite in Marawi City, Lanao del Sur, tomorrow, March 18. The plebiscite is to ratify the creation of 2 barangays in the city, namely Bongagail and Dato Dalidigan. COMELEC Chairman George Garcia says the new barangays are a result of the increase in the number of displaced residents following the 2017 Marawi siege.
Alam nyo kasi dahil sa Marawi siege, yung mismo mga bakwit, yung mismo mga mamamayan na dati na andito, pumunta sa ibang lugar dito sa Marawi din naman. Kaya dahil doon, yung mismo isang barangay ay lumaki ng lumaki na kakailanganin ng hatiin, hindi na pwedeng yung barangay na yun lang. Yun ang direct effect nito. Alam nyo, madami pa tayong mga bakwit at yan na nasa ibang lugar, katulad ng Sagyaran, na nadaanan din papunta rito sa Marawi City. Katulad din dyan sa may bandang Pantar, Lanao del Norte, naandyan halos yung mga kababayan natin na nanggaling din sa Marawi.
COMELEC clarified that this is not the first time a plebiscite was held in Marawi since the tragic siege in 2017. The residents participated in 2018 barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections and the national and local elections on 2019 and 2022.
Napakalaking simbolismo rin ito dahil ipinapakita lamang ng mga kababayan natin sa Marawi, ng mga Maranao, ng mga mamamayan ng Lanao del Sur na kaya nilang bumangon kahit na nagkaroon dito ng siege.
But this is the first local electoral exercise that will be held in Marawi City since the 2017 siege. COMELEC also appealed to residents to participate in the plebiscite on Saturday from 7 o'clock in the morning until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Voters will have to answer yes or no if they favor or not in the creation of new barangays. Garcia also assured that security measures are in place to maintain peace and order as well as the safety of the voters. Meanwhile, the poll body also assured that security for the BSKE in October, acknowledging the candidates competing in local polls are much personal.
Nalulungkot ang COMELEC dahil sa mga kabi-kabilang pangyayari ng karahasan, lalo na patungkol sa ating mga elected local officials. Sobra kami nalulungkot dyan, kaya lamang sa puntong ito kasi ay hindi pa kasi pumapasok ang election period, wala pang kapangyarihan ng Commission na Elections upang ang katiwasayan ng bawat isa at bawat lugar ay mapanatili natin. At this point lang din, napaka-importante yung mga pangyayari niyan ay aming namomonitor sapagkat later on, pwede namin ma-consider yung mga areas kung saan nagkaroon ng karahasan as areas of concern, serious concern, at at the same time, pwede rin maging basihan ang paglalagay ng areas nito under COMELEC control.
The COMELEC chief also said that he is not afraid amid the threats and will continue to fulfill his duty to the nation.
Gusto natin patunayan din na ang COMELEC ay hindi natatakot sa mga ganitong klaseng pangyayari. Minsan nga ang karahasan ay dinadala mismo sa aming mga pintuan, sa aming mga tauhan. Ang karahasan ay pwede mangyari sa kahit anong lugar, sa kahit na saang lipunan, kahit saang bayan nangyayari po yan. Hindi natin mapipigilan kapag talagang mayroong masamang adikain o kaisipan ng ilang tao. Subalit kung mapapakita natin na una, mabilis ang hustisya sa ating bansa. Pangalawa, na tayo ay magkakapit-bisig, magsasama-sama. At the same time, makikipagtulungan tayo, lalong-lalo na sa ating pamahalaan dito sa Commission on Elections. Ay ipapakita natin na walang kasamaan na pwede manaig. At the same time, kung maipapakita natin, isa ang boses natin.
May Ancor Vera, for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Later in the news, clash erupts between police and protesters in Greece over rail accident. Grim search continues in Malawi for victims of Cyclone Freddy. And North Korea confirms they fired an intercontinental ballistic missile. Mata ng Agila International will return after this quick break.
Layunin po talaga namin, makatulong talaga kami.
Ang una po naming natulungan is yung mga abandoned child of Japanese Filipinos.
Japan is very peaceful, it's very quiet, it's very safe.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Welcome Welcome back to Matanang Agila International. Police in Athens fired tear gas at protesters who threw fire bombs as they voiced their anger over last month's train disaster that left 57 people dead. The demonstrations saw more than 40,000 people take to the street in several cities. In central Athens, clashes broke out as about 25,000 people rallied at Syntagma Square near Parliament. Police fired tear gas and stun grenades as protesters tried to surround them, hurling fire bombs and rocks. As the demonstrators retreated, they smashed traffic lights and shop windows. Some set fire to garbage bins. Brief clashes also broke out in Thessaloniki and Patras. A 24-hour strike accompanied the protests. It shut down government offices and canceled flights and ferries. Many of the protesters want the government of Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis to resign over what is the country's deadliest rail accident. They claim the accident is the result of mismanagement of their rail network. The tragedy happened when a freight train collided head-on with a passenger train.
The military is helping people in Malawi recover the bodies of those who died in mudslides. This after Cyclone Freddy swept through the country for a second time. It is believed hundreds of people have been killed. Search efforts got underway on Thursday when heavy rain let up after 5 days. Lacking sniffer dogs and armed with just shovels, rescuers are digging through the mud looking for buried bodies. The army is working with local residents to find victims of the storm. Officials have put the death toll at more than 400. Freddy returned to the African coast on the weekend for the second time in 3 weeks. Before dissipating on Wednesday, Freddy set an unofficial record as the world's longest tropical storm. That tops a record set in 1994 for a 31-day storm named John.
The search for 10 workers trapped in an underground coal mine in Colombia ends with the discovery of their bodies. That brings the death toll from an explosion in the pit to 21. Dozens of rescuers searched for the workers in 6 interconnected legal mines. During the rescue effort, there were concerns that oxygen was running out and water was beginning to accumulate. The tragedy happened Tuesday after a spark from a worker's tool ignited a buildup of methane gas. The following day, rescuers found 11 bodies. Officials are now trying to determine whether the mines had proper airflow. In order for the methane not to explode, proper ventilation and monitoring systems are needed to allow for alerts and split-second decision-making.
2 police officers in the western Canadian city of Edmonton have been shot and killed. As Net 25 correspondent Thomas I. Lignes reports, the officers had responded to a call about a domestic dispute.
The officers arrived at this apartment complex in west central Edmonton about 1 o'clock a.m. local time yesterday morning. They went inside the building and approached the suite where a family dispute had been taking place. There, they were met by a man who gunned them down. Police Chief Dale McPhee says the officers didn't have time to defend themselves. McPhee says other officers took the pair to hospital, but despite first aid efforts, the 2 officers were pronounced dead on arrival. He adds the gunman is also dead. He died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. A woman complainant in the apartment was taken to hospital with life-threatening injuries. She remains there in serious but stable condition. The officers have been identified as 35-year-old Constable Travis Jordan, an 8.5-year veteran of the service, and 30-year-old Constable Brett Ryan, who's been with the service for about 5.5 years. Officer shooting deaths are rare in Edmonton. Only 8 police officers have ever been killed in the line of duty, and never have 2 been killed on the same day. The last time an Edmonton police officer was killed was 8 years ago, and before that, it was 25 years ago. Reporting from Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Lignes for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
1 person died in a fire that broke out Thursday in Russian security services offices near the border with Ukraine. 2 other people suffered injuries in the blaze. The fire tore through the building located in the city of Rostov-on-Don. It housed the offices of the Rostov Region's Border Guard, which is part of the FSB, Russia's National Security Service. Although there was no immediate danger of the fire spreading to adjacent buildings, authorities began evacuating people. Officials say a short circuit caused the blaze. There have been several incidents of reported sabotage attributed to Ukrainian partisans living in Russian territory since the invasion of Ukraine last year. Kiev has not commented on the fire.
Russia says it is conducting military drills with China and Iran in the Arabian Sea. The trilateral exercises are called Marine Security Belt 2023. They are taking place near the Iranian port of Chabahar. In a statement, the Russian Defense Ministry says during naval drills, ships will perform joint maneuvers. The ministry says they will carry out artillery firing in daytime and at night. Russian President Vladimir Putin has sought to ramp up political, economic, and military ties with China and Iran since its conflict with Ukraine last year. That triggered multiple rounds of unprecedented Western sanctions.
U.S. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has offered new aid in Niger. One of the world's poorest countries, most of Niger's land area lies in Sahara Desert. Niger also faces challenges to development due to its periodic drought and population growth.
What you see Niger doing, including dealing with problems of violent extremism and terrorism, but also security more generally, is taking this holistic approach, focused on development, focused on good governance, focused on building institutions, focused on giving people opportunity. And the fact that Niger, which is obviously one of the poorest countries on earth, is doing this so effectively, I think only underscores the importance of taking this comprehensive approach.
After talks with President Mohamed Bazoum, Blinken announced $150 million in new humanitarian assistance for Niger and Sahel region. He said the funding includes food aid and support for migrants who have fled to war-ravaged Libya. Blinken also vowed to broaden support for Sahel and asserted that the United States is a better partner than Russia.
Everywhere Wagner goes, bad things tend to follow. First of all, where we've seen it act, it hasn't improved security. On the contrary, we've actually seen things get worse. And the exploitation of resources, the corruption, the violence that it brings are a plague on people in the countries that have chosen to work with it.
Foreign Minister Eduardo Reina asserts economic necessity and Taiwan's refusal to increase financial aid were behind Honduras's decision to establish diplomatic ties with China. Reina says they also asked Taiwan to realign Honduras's $600 million debt. However, they did not receive positive responses. Reina explains the economic reality that 171 countries in the world have relations with China. He says this pushed Honduras to also establish economic ties with Beijing. Meanwhile, Taiwan advises Honduras not to fall into China's debt trap. Under Beijing's One China principle, no country may maintain official diplomatic relations with both China and Taiwan.
政府绝不会与中国进行金钱竞逐，同时也提醒红国政府，既已饱受债务问题的困扰，切勿饮鸩止渴，反而陷入中国债务的陷阱。中国极权主义扩张的野心不仅局限在东海、南海、台海，甚至广及全球，也包括南太平洋、印度洋等地，早已引起民主阵营国家的高度重视与警觉。中国势力在中南美洲的扩张，势必也为美国所重视。
North Korea, meanwhile, has confirmed it fired an intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, on Thursday. Seoul and Tokyo detected the launch of the banned missile. hours before South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol met with Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. North Korea's state media said the ICBM was Hwasong-17, known as Pyongyang's monster missile. KCNA added Pyongyang's intention was to demonstrate a tough response posture to U.S. and South Korean military drills.
In a last-minute move, the government of French President Emmanuel Macron pushes through a controversial pension reform that will raise the retirement age from 62 to 64. Macron bypasses Parliament using a special constitutional power to ram through the changes. The move admits the government lacks a majority in the National Assembly to pass the legislation. While this was going on, thousands of protesters demonstrated outside of Parliament. By evening, police intervened to clear the demonstrators. Lines of police with shields and batons advanced towards the protesters. As they charged, police lobbed tear gas to disperse the crowd. Others fired a water cannon after demonstrators lit a fire in the square in front of Parliament. Police say they made 8 arrests.
France accused of slowing down ammunition supply plan to Ukraine. Top diplomat Joseph Borrell called to allocate billion euros from the EU budget. This is to reimburse member states for an immediate transfer of ammunition from their stockpiles to Ukraine. But French officials said only defense companies based in the EU should have access to the new production contracts. The demand was reportedly criticized for potentially slowing down support for Ukraine. EU foreign and defense ministers are expected to reach a concrete and formal decision on the proposed aid package for Ukraine in Brussels on March 20. The final decision on this issue will remain with the European Parliament.
An American newspaper says the U.S. and its allies are running out of ammunition for Ukraine. The Pentagon has reportedly even raised concerns with Zelensky's government and warned about wasting ammunition. The report also claims a secret British task force is trying to buy Soviet-caliber ammunition from around the world. The U.S. and NATO have managed to put together some shells, but they are supposed to be used in the upcoming spring offensive against Russia. One Pentagon official described the push as a last-ditch effort, since the West does not have enough ammunition to keep up with Ukrainian expenditures. Up next, United States Education Department uses secret shoppers to catch predatory schools. Activists rally against U.S. President Biden administration's immigration policies. And Spain gets tougher on cruelty to animals. Please stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will be back with more global news.
This portion Sama-sama ang best and the brightest ng Net25 para sa first Net25 Golf Cup ngayong March 20, 2023 in Alabang Country Club. Pangungunahan ito nila Tito Soto, Vic Soto with Aga Mulak at makakasama rin ang iba pang mga stars ng Net25. Register now. Please call Vian Amyon at 0917-322-8369. Limited slots only. Sign up and let's net together on a golf course.
Ako po si Jopay Paga Zamora. Abangan niyo po ako sa Sabado sa Oh No, It's Biro Only with Tito Joey De Leon. Get out!
Oh no! It's Biro only! Sa Net25!
Together, sa Net25.
A first-of-its-kind summit by Bloomberg Philanthropies, World Health Organization, Vital Strategies, and Mayor Sadiq Khan of London recognizes 5 partnerships for Healthy Cities Award recipients. Joan Soriano reports.
5 global cities are recognized for their achievements in preventing non-communicable diseases, or NCDs, and injuries. Award recipients include Montevideo, Uruguay for food policy, Mexico City, Mexico for road safety, Vancouver, Canada for surveillance, Athens, Greece for overdose prevention, and Bengaluru, India for tobacco control. The inaugural Partnership for Healthy Cities Summit in London brings together mayors and officials from more than 50 major cities across the globe. This in a partnership to discuss urgent public health concerns and best practices that save lives and create healthier cities. NCDs include heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and chronic respiratory diseases. And injuries are responsible for over 80% of all deaths globally. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says the 5 cities being recognized demonstrate that mayors can drive powerful progress to protect the health of their citizens. In New York, Joanne Soriano for Madanang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
In the U.S., the Education Department says it will be using secret shoppers to find out if post-secondary institutions are complying with the laws and regulations of the federal student aid programs. What are secret shoppers? Carlo Valdez tells us more.
They are called secret shoppers, and the Department of Education is using them to make sure that predatory schools are held accountable. The Department's Enforcement Office of Federal Student Aid, or FSA, says secret shoppers will help them ensure that students, borrowers, families, and taxpayers are not being preyed upon to make a quick buck. Secret shoppers will look for misrepresentations regarding the transferability of credits, job placement rates, completion and withdrawal rates, graduates' future earning potential, career services, the cost of attendance, the amount of federal student aid, and accreditation status. They will also hunt for any other practices that may violate the laws and regulations governing an institution's participation in the federal student aid programs. And if they find something not right, well, their discoveries may serve as evidence to support an ongoing investigation or review. They may also provide a basis for opening a new investigation or review. FSA will refer findings to other department offices, including the Office of Inspector General. It will also share findings with other law enforcement partners at the state and federal levels. FSA's Chief Enforcement Officer warns schools that engage in fraud or misconduct should clean up accordingly. The FSA assures, however, that schools that act lawfully have nothing to fear from secret shopping. At present, according to the U.S. National Center for Education Statistics, over 85% of students here in America receive some form of financial aid. In Union, New Jersey, Carlo Valdez for Matanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump's campaign attacked the Manhattan District Attorney's Office ahead of possible charges linked to his effort to pay hush money. Stephen Choing, Trump's spokesperson for the campaign, insists the former U.S. leader is completely innocent. Choing says Democrats have investigated and attacked Trump since before he was elected, but they have failed every time. The Manhattan investigation focuses on the alleged $130,000 hush payment in the final days of Trump's 2016 presidential campaign.
Immigrants' rights advocates rallied near the White House to protest against U.S. President Joe Biden's immigration policies. Biden recently proposed tough restrictions on asylum seekers amid reports of a potential return of detentions of migrant families at the border. A resident from El Salvador compares the policy to former President Donald Trump. He says Biden's policy is worse since he was going to close the detention centers. Other activists lament Biden is criticizing Trump, yet he is doing the same thing, promising too many things and sending everything to trash.
In Papua New Guinea's capital city of Port Moresby, a celebration of the culture and identity of indigenous people delight communities, from canoe racing to cultural dances to the event's queen selection. Eco Ortaleza Quinola tells us more.
Hirimo Holiday once again gathers the citizens and the foreign visitors. The annual event commences in Aracona Beach and Sir Hubert Murray Stadium. This celebration is to pay homage to the voyagers of the trading tribes and villages using the famous iconic sea vessel called Lakatoy. Lakatoy is a wooden hull covered with bamboo and straw boat. The National Capital District officials led the joy-filled day. The Motukoy-Tabu region highlights and showcases the culture and identity of the indigenous residents of the capital city. Activities include a canoe race, cultural dances, and the selection of a queen from the representatives of each village. The traditional cultural shows unites the city once again. One people, one city, one future for Port Moresby. In Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Eco Hortaleza Quinola for Matalang Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
An Indonesian court acquitted 2 senior police officers charged with negligence over a stadium crowd crush last year that killed 135 people. Presiding Judge Abu Ahmad Sidki Amsha said the charges had not been proven. The court's decision angered relatives of those who died in one of football's worst tragedies. Several relatives of 135 victims also broke into tears when the judge read the verdicts on the last day of the trial. One lawyer said there had been no justice for the families. Another officer was jailed for 18 months, but families of the victims claimed he had been treated too leniently. Lawyer Imam Hidayat, who represents some of the victims, said the case had been marred with inconsistencies. Spain's parliament passes a law that brings in stiffer penalties for cruelty to animals. The legislation has new requirements for pet owners. The new law requires anyone who adopts a dog to undergo training. It also imposes a ban on leaving a dog alone for more than 24 hours. Cat owners will have to have their pets sterilized. This is a bid to control births and the abandonment or killing of unwanted litter. For those convicted of animal cruelty, the penalty is up to 18 months in prison if the animal requires veterinary care. If the animal dies under what Parliament calls aggravating factors, offenders face a jail term of up to 3 years behind bars. The legislation is concerned mainly with pets. It does not include animals raised for slaughter, nor does it have any effect on bullfighting.
Abstenciones 5.
Scottish sea life rescuers continue with their rescue of sea animals on the island of Shetland. From London, here's our correspondent Ryan Florentino for the details.
Located on the Scottish island of Shetland, the Hillswick Wildlife Sanctuary provides a safe haven for otters and seals. However, the couple who run it, Jan and Pete Bevington, have noticed a steady decline in the health conditions of the animals being brought in, which has made it increasingly difficult to save them. The couple say pollution from humans and food shortages have hurt seals populations, while an increase in the number of killer whales coming to Shetland in search of food is adding pressure. Let's listen to some comments from Pete Bevington, director of Hillswick Wildlife Sanctuary.
But we think that there's a general decline in the environment. Food shortages, pollution, pressure on the habitat from humans and from wildlife as well. You know, we're getting killer whales coming here every year. They feed on the seal population as well, so that's an added pressure on them that they don't need, but that's nature for you, and it goes through cycles. So
The Hillswick Wildlife Sanctuary was founded in 1987 when a seal washed up on the beach, and Jan Bevington researched how best to help it. Now, more than 3 decades later, the sanctuary has become a vital organization in the region. Covering Shetland's vast 1,500-mile coastline is a challenging task, but the Bevingtons have established a network of people to assist them in rescuing seals and otters in need. Reporting from London, United Kingdom, I'm Ryan Florentino for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Cambodia is imposing tough new restrictions on fishing in the Mekong River. This is an effort to save the country's freshwater dolphins from extinction. But while there may be new regulations, the country's limited financial resources make it a challenge to enforce them. The rare Irrawaddy dolphins become trapped in gill nets, making it impossible for them to surface so that they can breathe. Cambodia has outlawed the use of gill nets on the river. These vertical nets are left in the water for a long time to catch fish, but are a death trap for the dolphins. More than 70 guards patrol a 120-kilometer stretch of the river looking for the nets. They say they are hindered by limited resources and intimidation by fishing gangs. At one time, Irrawaddy dolphins swam through much of the Mekong all the way to Vietnam. But illegal fishing and plastic waste have killed many, and their habitats have been reduced by upstream dams.
Coming right up, Credit Suisse's $54 billion lifeline calms panic in Europe. South Korea plans to build the world's largest chip center with Samsung. And Golden Boy Carlos Yulo promotes gymnastics to Filipino children. Catch more news when Mata ng Agila International returns. Swiss regulators pledged a liquidity lifeline to Credit Suisse Bank. The move calmed panic investors with shares in Switzerland's second biggest bank shooting higher. In a joint statement, the Swiss financial regulator FINMA and the nation's central bank sought to ease investor fears around Credit Suisse. The statement came after a major government and at least one bank put pressure on Switzerland to act after the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank last week. Credit Suisse said it welcomed the statement of support from the Swiss National Bank and FINMA. Credit Suisse would be the first major global bank to be given such a lifeline since the 2008 financial crisis. Focus had shifted from the United States to Europe, where Credit Suisse led a rout in bank shares after its largest investor could not provide more financial assistance. Meanwhile, Beijing calls for the United States to stop unreasonably suppressing TikTok. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Wang Wenbin asserts Washington has failed to produce evidence that TikTok threatens U.S. national security. Wang insists China always maintained that data security issues should not be used as a tool to abuse state power. He adds the U.S. should stop spreading false information on data security issues and provide an open, fair, just, and non-discriminatory business environment for foreign companies.
Chinese search engine Baidu reports about a 10% plummet in shares after AI chatbot debut disappoints investors. In Baidu's press event, co-founder Robin Li presented a pre-recorded demonstration of their Ernie bot. The video showcased the bot's performance in answering questions, generating summary plots, algebra skills, and its generated audio. Sources say the audiences fell short as they were expecting a live interaction with the bot. According to Baidu, it aims to integrate the bot with its search engine as well as smart home devices. However, China imposed strict censorship while the U.S. limits the chip sales. This hurdles Baidu and other Chinese tech companies to develop their AI technology.
South Korean government plans to build the world's largest chip center with Samsung. Using $230 billion of private investment from Samsung Electronics, South Korea seeks an edge in the global industry. The plan is part of the government's drive to invest heavily in technology. South Korea's industry ministry said the cluster plan is due to be completed by 2042. Samsung and Taiwan's TSMC are just the two companies in the world that make the most advanced microchips.
Two-time world champion gymnast Carlos Yulo has returned to the country following his participation in the 3 out of the 4 series of FIG Artistic Gymnastics World Cup Series held in Germany, Qatar, and Azerbaijan. Carlos won 3 gold medals, 1 silver, and 1 bronze from the said World Cup Series. In his return, the SEA Games multi-medalist Yulo will take care of a grassroots development program for gymnastics in the country in the coming days before leaving for Japan to continue his training. Yulo will be staying in the country for 13 days and will leave for Japan, where he will continue his training and preparations for the 4th and the last leg of the FIG Artistic Gymnastics World Cup Series from April 7 to 30 in Cairo, Egypt. The American pop superstar Taylor Swift drops her 4 unreleased songs in celebration of her The Eras Tour. Swift posted her announcement in her Instagram stories this morning. The Taylor's version songs are Eyes Open, Safe Sound, If This Was a Movie, and All of the Girls You Loved Before. Swift also uploaded shots of likely to be taken from her rehearsals on her social media. Taylor Swift's 6th tour will kick off today, March 17, and will end on August 9.
For this weekend, here's a documentary you can watch and that will keep you at the edge of your seats somehow. Stephanie Maya for more.
This 2013 controversial and powerful Sundance documentary actually ended SeaWorld's killer whale breeding program. It tells the story of Tilikum, a captive orca whale that killed several people. The documentary puts a spotlight on the shocking conditions of captive killer whales and exposes the culture of the sea park industry. This true story is an eye-opener, both terrifying and heartbreaking. An absolute must-see. Stream it on Netflix. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
This just in, a magnitude 4.9 earthquake has hit San Antonio, Zambales at 9:56 p.m. Intensity 2 and instrumental intensity were recorded in Quezon City. Authorities say aftershocks are not expected.
Chinese young artist from Liaocheng, Wei Wanzuan, performs her skills in creating intricate figures from metal wires. The young artist carefully forms her art by twisting and bending the cable. Wei's creations vary from the beautiful sculptures of cars, birds, and golden trees. Sources say she takes weeks to fully complete her masterpiece. Wei's studio manager says she was imparted with the discipline to carefully plan things in achieving such incredible art.
And to end your weekdays, here's a quote from American entrepreneur Steve Jobs. If you're working on something that you really care about, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you.
I completely agree with that.
You know, it's a lot like when you find joy in that one thing that you do, it will feel as if you're not working a day in your life.
So always try to find something that gives you joy.
Definitely.
And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels, and happy weekend, everybody. I am Ricky Matay.
And I am Nina Richie Alagao Flores, always saying happy weekend and do take care of yourselves. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.